that? Boom. How about that? Where's my chat? Private. I got private chat, but I don't see chat. Where's chat? We're getting used to StreamYard again. Do you see chat down here? Comment. Oh, they're called comments. I see. Okay, we're up. Anyway, I'm getting really tired of hearing about Ernst Haeckel, so I went and did a little. I had a little talk with ChatGPT about Ernst Haeckel, and then I went around and I searched. But okay, so the lore is on Ernst Haeckel that he egregiously faked these diagrams to prove evolution back in 1850 or something, like a long time ago.
Yeah, right? I'm not sure what the accusation was. Or I know the accusation. I don't know the timeline.
Right, and not only that, but they say, and he was put on trial for it in Germany, and he lost it. They threw him out of the university and all of that, right? So that's a lore. He was put on trial. It was so egregious that they put him on trial for it or something. Is one of the claims, and he was thrown out of his university. Well, none of that happened. So let me figure out what I got here. We got a little window, we got sources, we got start the cam. Okay. So what we want to do, cinema layout. No, I don't want that. Okay. None of this is working. Okay. Now we're trying to use ChatGPT. Or no, we're trying to use StreamYard, and none of it's working. Why is it not working? There we go. Okay. Yeah, I can make that work. Let's see if I can make this work. No, that doesn't work.
All right, this is too small.
Okay.
And
none of the other ones, when I click them, actually work. Anyway, Ernst Haeckel was a German biologist, naturalist, and philosopher who lived in from 1834 to 1990. I think he died in his 80s. He made significant contributions to the fields of biology and evolutionary theory, including coining the terms ecology, phylogeny, and stem cell. One of the most famous and controversial contributions in his series of embryo drawings, which is what we're talking about, which he used to support his biogenetic law. So let's see, he proposed a biogenetic law, often summarized as ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. So he came up with that too, or somebody did. This means the development of an organism mirrors the evolutionary development of its species. Now, Stephen Jay Gould really didn't like that, and he came way back. Yeah, okay, Calasius here. And the ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny thing doesn't really work, but there are some parts of it when you study embryology that show you that there is a real similarity in how vertebrates develop, basically. And there's a period in vertebrate development. Well, we'll get into that part. Let's take a look at the drawings first. Okay, there's embryo drawings. The illustrator's theory, Haeckel created detailed drawings comparing the embryonic stages of various vertebrates, like fish, salamander, turtles, chickens, pigs, and humans. They showed remarkable similarities among the embryos at certain stages. Now that's important. Okay, we want to highlight that part. Oh, can you see my mouse, Scott?
Sorry, I had a screen up. I can see I can see your mouse pointer.
Oh, okay. Wow,
which is a great feature.
Damn cool. Yeah, it is. Let's see. Okay, at certain stages is what I want to highlight. Okay, think that was his idea. The controversy.
Real quick, before we get to the controversy, this thing about the ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny.
Right.
Even though it's not as strictly true as I guess Haeckel started out believing.
Yeah.
Why would there be such similarities at different stages to different, shall we say, critters at different evolutionary stages if there wasn't evolution involved? Why would a creator God make that a step of the process. There's no discernible reason for that, or maybe there's one given by creationists that I just haven't heard. But why? Why would it? I want to say capitulate, but I don't mean it in any specific technical sense. But
Yeah.
But why would that be necessary? Why would anybody think to do that? And the problem with theism is that the answer is always going to have to be, it's a mystery to God. It's God's mystery. And so you can't do science when every fifth or sixth inconvenient principle that you discern or from biology, or any fifth or sixth scientific issue you raise is met with, oh, it's a mystery known only by God. It just stops and stunts the scientific process. And we know from history that when we've refused to just leave it to God, quote unquote, as the explanation, we find the explanation, or we certainly get much closer to it than we would had we listened to a bunch of priests and monks out, writing church law.
Yeah, I can actually, we can get into a little bit later. There are comebacks that they could give to that about why God did it that way or whatever. But nevertheless, they'd have trouble with the gills. The gills are always a problem for them, and they won't admit that. Humans do have some sort of they're not gill slits, but the structures that form the gills are the same structures that form our lower jaw.
It's like the beginning scaffolding of a building or whatever that's sort of copied after another one, but
over and over again. Yeah, and every time they make a new building, they add a little bit to the building and kind of make a few changes, but they always start out with the same, the same construction, that sort of thing. They always start out with a cycle. Okay, so let's see. So he created these drawings to illustrate his theory, and the controversy shortly after their publication, Haeckel's embryo drawings became the subject of intense scrutiny and criticism. Now, first of all, keep in mind that Haeckel was promoting evolution, and one of Haeckel's things was that he did not like the fact that religion was trying to influence science. So he got into a bit of a kerfuffle with the religious nutcakes of the day. And of course, back then, there were even more of them, right? And so they were mad at him, and he was a little bit perturbed by them. So there's already a controversy. So if you're going to see criticisms, it's going to come from these guys. So anyway, they accused him of deliberately altering his drawings to exaggerate the similarities between different species. Oh my goodness, we went off. What do we do here? That's true. Okay. Hi, Dave. Let's
Hello.
see. Yep. They argue that he manipulated the images by omitting features, adding structures that weren't present, or scaling embryos to make them appear more alike. And some contemporaries conducted their own studies and found discrepancies between actual embryonic development and Haeckel's drawings. Wilhelm Hess Sr., a Swiss anatomist, was one of the prominent figures who challenged Haeckel's work, accusing him of scientific misconduct. Okay, so that's one person. Haeckel's defense. Haeckel admitted to simplifying some of the drawings, but defended his work by stating that the illustrations were meant to be schematic representations rather than exact replicas. Now, the drawing that they use most often is the one that he presented in his public lectures, which he simplified, and they were a lot less detailed than the drawings that he did in the textbooks that he wrote, or the books that he wrote. He argued that the purpose was to highlight the general patterns and the minute details. So let's see, what do we got here? Did I go past something? Yes. Modern reevaluations. Okay, so in 1997, Michael K. Richardson wrote the article that the creationists seized upon, and that's what started it up as a real current creationist talking point that, oh, the massive fraud. Anyway, he revisited the controversy. So in anatomy and embryology, they compared Haeckel's drawings to the actual photographs of vertebrate embryos. Their findings indicated Haeckel had indeed overstated similarities. So exaggerated similarities and neglected differences. Again, implications for evolutionary biology. Despite the inaccuracies, the fundamental concept of embryonic development reflects evolutionary relationships, holds some truth. So there's some truth to it. Common ancestry evidence. Similarities in embryonic structures and genetic pathways support the idea of common ancestry. Now, the creationists could say that, oh, God had to create the organism, and because he wanted humans to look kind of like, be a little like cows, and that we had backbones and heads and eyes and all that stuff, and he wanted us to look a whole lot like chimpanzees, then obviously God is going to have to use the same pathway for the embryo to develop, right? So today, Haeckel's biogenic law is considered an oversimplification and is not accepted in its original form. Big surprise, it happened 120 years ago. However, the field of evolutionary developmental biology acknowledges that while embryos do not literally replay evolutionary history, developmental processes can reveal important evolutionary relationships. So we know that, and that's what I've been finding in my studies of embryology. Okay, summarize. Haeckel's intentions aim to provide visual evidence for his evolutionary theory. His methods raise ethical concerns. They always do. They always should. He sparked important discussions about embryology and evolution. The real story of Haeckel's embryos is the complex interplay of scientific innovation, controversy, and the evolution of scientific understanding, which we would expect for stuff that was done in the 1800s, right? I mean, I don't know if anybody noticed.
How you're going to even have an objective basis of comparison, because all you have is hand drawings, you know.
And I don't know if anybody noticed, but there was a whole century between us now and 1800s, right? Like the 20th century.
And they don't use drawings in the textbooks. They actually have photographs of embryos now because they have the technology to do that.
Yep. Okay. Let's see.
So even if his stuff was totally wrong, it doesn't matter. Like you said, 100 some years later, it doesn't matter. We have the photos now. So why they even bring it up is just pointless, really.
Well, it's basically their little smear campaign. It's not, oh, this is inaccurate. We need more accurate slides, or we need more accurate drawings, and to compare. It's this one thing was flawed. Therefore, the whole freaking theory and system of biological evolution is wrong. And that's what they're trying to make out of it. Out of finding
that's
little weaknesses, in history.
That guy that was talking with Mark the other night, that's what his was. That, well, they've got these couple of things like Piltdown Man and stuff. So everything is a fraud.
Yeah, Piltdown Man. I mean, that happened 30 years before I was born, I think, or a long time before I was born, and I'm really old. So, I mean, it's like, and the thing about Piltdown Man that you'll notice is that everybody's heard of that phrase, because that is the only controversy that we know of, right? That one and the tooth from Kansas, the pig tooth. Those two things are always talked about. Everybody's heard
Nebraska Man.
Okay. Everybody's heard this because those stand out as the only frauds that they've found. So, I mean, that's why everybody, like Piltdown Man is something that a lot of people have heard of. It's because there are so few frauds.
And getting back to our previous discussion about Piltdown Man, I just did a quick little inquiry. Basically, right around the time my grandfather was born, back in 1911, 1912, Piltdown Man was quote unquote discovered, but they didn't debunk it until 1953. So
okay, I was 2 years old when they debunked it.
Yeah.
So,
So that's about
yeah,
40 years. But you know what happened that really affected Britain and Britain's priorities in the 40 years in between would be World War I, World War II. There was a Great Depression in there, and you know, finally, once all the lads, you know, from the science departments were back from war and educated and could then look at it, they discovered that it had been a fraud.
Yeah. So I asked it the question, did he go on trial or get thrown out of his university, as some have claimed? And ChatGPT did a search of the current internet history up to 2022, I think. And it said he faced significant criticism and controversy, but there is no historical evidence to suggest that he went on trial or was expelled from his university because of these issues. Okay. It's not real. Okay,
send that clip. Send that clip to the Hawaiian shirt guy, because he still repeats
Max?
that. No.
Yeah, that guy.
The Hawaiian shirt guy. Yeah. The one in the double wide. Yeah.
Okay. If you sent a fact to Kent, it would just bounce off. It'd come back to you. They'd return the sender. I mean, the mail wouldn't even arrive. If there's a fact in his mail, right? It doesn't.
Yeah, it would have a funk all over it when you got it back too. So.
Oh yeah, it'd be kind of grimy. Okay, so continued professorship. Haeckel served as a professor of zoology at the University of Jena for many years. He began in 1862 and remained affiliated with the university until he retired in 1909. So where the hell did he get thrown out of the university? No record of expulsion. Throughout the controversies, Haeckel maintained his position at the university. There are no credible records indicating that it was dismissed or faced institutional penalties that led to his expulsion. Okay. And then it says, while Haeckel was accused of scientific misconduct by some of his religious contemporaries, these accusations did not lead to any formal large trials. The disputes were largely confined to academic and scientific circles, which involves writing letters to each other, nasty letters like, oh, you fraud, that sort of thing. Criticism often resulted in public debates and written exchanges in scientific journals rather than courtroom battles. So that's the truth. Okay. And I once went and searched for that, and there was some rumor written in a book or something where they said something about him, but you can't uncover any facts about him being charged or expelled from his university. Okay. Wilhelm His. We should look him up. I wonder who he is exactly. Accused Haeckel of oversimplifying. Yes, he oversimplified. Haeckel defended his work by stating his drawings were schematic. Okay, we went through that. Origins of claims may stem from misunderstandings or exaggerations of historical events. Some sources, particularly those critical of evolutionary theory, have amplified the controversies surrounding his work. Hey, how about that? Why would they do that? I mean, why would they mischaracterize something? Lack of evidence. Historical research does not support the notion of a trial or expulsion. Legacy and impact. Despite the controversies, Haeckel remained a prominent figure in biology and continued to contribute to scientific discussions and publications. His ideas, though flawed in some respects, played a role in advancing the study of evolution. Okay. What about the rebuttal of Robert J. Richards? Okay, so Robert J. Richards wrote a paper or an article in some magazine in 1997, and that's what the Creationists seized on.
That's Michael K. Richards.
Oh, was it? What did I say?
Oh, you said Richard or something like that, or
Richardson. Okay. Now this guy, Robert J. Richards, wrote a let's see, where is it here? Okay. Haeckel's embryos, fraud not proven, basically. He wrote a rebuttal in 2007 to Richardson's paper, which was Michael Richardson, right? See how this confuses the old man?
It is very confusing.
It is very confusing. Anyway, so let's see. This I'm going to post a link to. This PDF is freely available. I can post a link to the PDF. In a Science magazine article published in 1997, Haeckel's embryos fraud rediscovered. Haeckel was indicted of having intentionally misrepresented embryological development. The article reported, The article reported, let's see, the photo showed embryos of various species. And then he goes on and he starts looking at the actual, like some actual pictures. And now these are photographs and photographs of Haeckel's drawings. Now, one of the accusations is that he changed the size of the embryos to make them look like the same size. And Haeckel said, yes, he had it right in his footnotes on his illustration that he had done that on purpose so that you could compare them. So he's accused of being a fraud for doing something which he puts in the footnotes that, yeah, I did that. It's like, so and there's something about they removed the yolk or something, but the 1997 article made it look worse than it was. So they used like the worst possible photos, and let's see, never retracted this judgment. He seems to have moderated his view in a subsequent article. So Richardson did modify. Haeckel's much criticized embryo drawings are important as phylogenetic hypotheses, teaching aids, and evidence for evolution. While some criticisms of his drawings are legitimate, others are more tendentious. Anyway, so he retracted his own work. So the work that the creationists are going on was actually retracted by Richardson to some point. Anyway, this article goes on. Let's see. This was, what do you got? The book grew out of a series of lectures that he gave to a general audience in 1873. How long ago was that, boys? That was 150 years ago. He then quickly redacted them from stenographic notes taken by two of his students. His own students criticized him, and he redacted the drawings. In a number of cases, Haeckel quite explicitly stated, here's the part about size. Haeckel, however, explicitly stated in the caption, his illustrations, that he reduced all the images to the same size to facilitate structural comparisons. And I think this is one of the illustrations, sort of thing. Okay, let's see. What about the considerable disparity between the images in the first edition of Haeckel's books and the photographs by Richardson and his colleagues? Let's see. So here's where they get into it, that even with the exculpating logical and historical considerations I have mentioned, how could a biologist of integrity represent a salamander embryo looking like a lopsided beach ball? It is that magnitude of difference that condemns Haeckel, but precisely here is the most dubious aspect of the case against him. Several, but not all, of the photographed embryos retained the attached yolk sac and other maternal material. This exaggerates their differences from Haeckel's images. So they kind of like made it look worse than it was, right? And he goes on to explain in detail what happens here. So I don't know what the hell those are. Illustrations from Haeckel's anthropogeny. Anthropogeny. And then there's some other ones. Let's see, re-engineered. Yeah, the other thing that, back in the day when they reproduced these things, they had to make woodcut prints of these things, right? And he reused some of the woodcut prints multiple times and then modified them because I don't know about you, but I don't like sitting around carving all day. And that wasn't his point. I think he was pretty honest about what was really going on. So anyway, yeah, he used the same woodcut 3 times to represent the initial formation of the embryos of dog, chicken, and turtle. When a reviewer notices Haeckel defended himself by arguing you could not tell the difference among these vertebrates at this very early stage, and given the instrumentation at the time, this was true. he nonetheless recognized that he egregiously erred and immediately corrected the text in the next edition 2 years later. So there's our fraud, boys and girls. So it's one other thing I want to point out. And that is, let me see here. Okay. Yeah, there's the originals or whatever. And, oh my goodness. I can't do that. So I'm going to go over here. Let's see here. Okay. Now, this is an illustration from a 2019 textbook, basically, that shows similar things, right? Okay, where the hell are we here? Come on, back up. Okay, so this is Xenopus, which is a frog, Xenopus alevus, zebrafish, chick, mouse, and human, which are the most studied things in embryology for laboratory reasons. It's very easy to do these frogs and to do zebrafish and to do chickens. And they show something here that is called the phylotypic stage right here. So right here, at a certain stage of development, there is a lot of similarity between all vertebrates, right? They're very different in the beginning. I mean, frogs are different because they have eggs, right? And chickens are different because they have eggs than humans, and which have, you know, the placenta and all that stuff. So there are going to be differences in the beginning. But at some stage, this phylotypic stage, which is really odd, they all end up kind of looking like the same little hunched over fetus picture that you see from the pro-lifers, you know? Look at those cute little fetuses. You guys are both muted. Why are you muted? Because I
didn't want to interrupt you. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Okay. Anyway.
Don't want the sound.
I was going to say, though, do you have an overlay photo where you could like put them side by side or whatever? Because I've seen them before, and like JG said in the chat, they're close enough. I mean,
yeah,
for hand drawings, they're pretty close to the modern photographs. And again, you know, there is such a thing as artistic licensing, and you know, when he you know, size them for a specific purpose and everything, that's just all serious nitpicking. The thing is, what does it look like compared to the actual photos we have today?
Yeah.
You know, how off are they? And they're not really that much off. They're pretty good.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, so that's kind of it. From there, you get an embryology. You can see like all of these vertebrates, right? They develop these, they're called somites. And from each somite, basically a little part of the vertebral column is formed, and muscles and some of the nerves push through those somites and innervate the muscles. And there's just a huge amount of stuff. We're going to. I'm hoping that Austin Sims and I can talk a little bit about embryology on Sunday. It's kind of what I've been gearing up for. There's just a lot here, and it's kind of amazing how these things, these like single eggs, start to divide up and form these little structures here, and then end up in this phylotypic stage where they're kind of the same, and then diverge again and form the final animal. And of course, a frog and a fish are very different than a baby. But when you study embryology, the one thing that you can see is that we are still fish. Birds are still fish. Frogs are still fish. I mean, mice are still fish because we follow the almost same pathways for development and use many of the same genes. The wonders of the Hox genes is how basically vertebrates got started, because this patterning, vertebrates and invertebrates, this patterning of the organism. Not long after multicellularity, we ended up with these Hox genes, and they're wonderful things, and they require a whole talk on their own. So I'm not going to get into it right now. But anyway, that's kind of all I had, guys. So let's see.
Do you feel like you've exercised your compulsion?
Yes. Yeah. And if we're going to hang around, we should hang around and talk some more. Everybody else that is just interested in Haeckel or wants to use this as a reference should just, you know. And I will put the link in the description. I haven't done it yet. I could put it to my embryology book where I got the illustration and to the PDF that took down the 1997 paper accusing Haeckel of fraud.
And they could have had Mike doing the drawings, and
right,
you know, his artwork being so much superior, we would have had far better images. But yeah, again, they weren't that bad, and the little fudges here or there, you know, in that age, it wasn't going to make any difference anyways. They didn't have the science or anything to.
Yeah, today.
What do you want?
There you go.
I got a barking dog. I got to let him out. I'll be back in a.
Okay, here's my Haeckel drawing.
We have instruments. We have databases. We have all sorts of ways to do comparisons at the micro level of the relationship between different proto organs or whatever that are developing in the embryo, and it's obviously more telling than what Haeckel had to deal with. I like my happy little embryo, and that's just is that like a poop emoji?
Yeah, that could be a poop emoji, but
okay, all right, kind of looks like one.
Yeah, here's Dave, and here's Scott, and here's Speed. I'm actually done by intelligent design. My parents actually thought about it, and said, "Hey, we need to create this little super being named Mike." Anyway, you agree with that?
Yeah, it looks very super.
It looks super. It looks intelligently designed. It looks intelligently designed. Yeah, that's kind of what I would expect from a god. Is that he would have had Legos, he would have and he would have had pathways that, basically gene regulatory networks that didn't look like this, but rather went like this very directly from one thing to another. But no, that's not how it works. So screw you, creationists. Just a way for them to not deal with modern information. Yeah, well, like I mentioned last night on a stream, that they are hell-bent on using science because they're thinking about the religion more in modern times, and it really bothers them how the religion sounds as opposed to how science sounds. Now, science has all these details you can dig into, and while their story says God said something and it happened, it's like
they're trying to reshape the language that people use to sound scientific, which is why when you look up things like baronology or
brahmanology,
or whatever their ology is, that's a total creationist thing. And when you look it up, all you're going to be able to see information from is creationist websites. So if you make up your own scientific-ish language, like it's done in Young Earth creationism, what's that other one about the rotor on the particular flagellum?
And the ATP synthase. That's
the specified complexity, or whatever they call it, irreducible complexity. Then they're the only ones who worry about that. So because it's not a real thing. But all the scientific, quote unquote, scientific information on that topic is pretty much going to be creationist websites. So you kind of wedge people into that language game that they're playing of taking things that sound scientific, putting some lab coats on turncoats, and making it all seem legitimate, so that you can feel good about believing ridiculous things.
Like the lab coats on turncoats. That's a good one.
Well,
I don't know. Cell Cordova likes to talk about this zinc finger, and they like to talk about their ATP synthase. And Cell Cordova wants to, I don't think it's 185, it might be 182, but he talks about a particular zinc finger protein and said, how could that form? What he doesn't mention is that there are 700 zinc finger proteins in the human genome. And that's why they have this goddamn number here, right? Because there are a lot of them. And they are homologous. They're kind of related to each other. They look like they were copied. Some don't look like they were copied. Some came from independent lineages, but there's a huge family of genes called zinc fingers. Now, ATP synthase, that's the little thing that sticks in the mitochondrial membrane. There are many different types. There's F types, there's V types, there's P types of synthase. There are ATP synthase does more than create ATP. It also pumps protons. It pumps out, I think it pumps out copper in some cases. It works in your kidneys to purify your blood. It works in the sperm to penetrate the egg. There, throughout the animal kingdom, these synthases, basically this one structure, has just many, many different forms, and it looks like it evolved twice in archaea and in prokaryotes, basically. So it had two separate, because it was such a useful thing. And the thing about synthase is it's created with a number of proteins that tend to stick together, like trimers, dimers, and hexamers. And what they fail to mention is that almost any protein that you create is going to stick like that, right? And it's very likely to stick to itself and create a homodimer or trimer or whatever. And this is ubiquitous, this kind of sticking together. And when that happens, and they happen to lodge in a cell membrane and do some useful function, natural selection is going to basically pick that up. But this is happening all the time. New proteins, basically, that were modified or duplicated and slightly mutated, stick together, stick in the membrane. They don't do anything useful for maybe 100 generations. And then suddenly they stick to something else, and they pump zinc ions, or something like that. I mean, this is just anyway, my point is that they will talk about one thing as if it's like unique, as if God created this one unique protein. And it's so remarkable that it's so engineered. And it's like, no, if you look out through the animal kingdom, you look way back into bacteria, you're going to find all kinds of homologous little remnants that indicate that it was all cobbled together by natural selection. Hey, David's here. Lori Hayes. David Laurie. Dave Laurie? Have your kids duct taped you to a chair recently? Your grandkids? I wonder.
His granddaughter, who used to love to do that, is probably like fully grown and able to just to pin him down now, just without duct tape.
Yeah, she probably, yeah. She probably has much more devious methods. Anyway, rant off.
Did you see the duct tape? Did you see the duct tape banana art that sold for $1 million or whatever it was?
$6.5 million, and the guy ate it. Did you know he ate the banana?
Yeah, I think he deserves to be in prison for just a grotesque waste of money, because 6 million people, $6 million. How many people could that have fed? Right. Dinner for a year.
Yep.
Or a new home or something like that. So he has to go and basically he's waving his enlarged penis around with a banana. And it's obscene. It's just obscene.
Yeah, in Minnesota, we're running out of beds for homeless people in the winter, and they're out there freezing. And he could have done, with $6.5 million, he could have created quite a few beds for the
maybe he
season.
to be sentenced to spend a few nights, on the streets of Milwaukee during the middle of the winter with nothing in his pockets and no PIN numbers for his ATM accounts. It's just, it's just silly.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm done.
I am thinking of, and I don't know if I want to bother to do this, but remember we did that video on prophecy, like in Isaiah, because by that, what's the guy's name? Oh, it's at the tip of my tongue. Steve Coping. What was his name? I did that PowerPoint presentation for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because I noticed in the comments, he basically, of course, he said, "Oh, you're stupid. You're obviously wrong, and you are too scared to admit it," or something like that. And I thought, well, I could. And he criticized the fact that I didn't play his video and then talk about it. Whereas what we did was we just said,
"Oh yeah, that's right."
Go why, and he was all upset about that, which is kind of it's not an argument, dude. It just means that people are free to go watch your video, which we referenced in the description,
which we linked, right? Yeah.
But I'm thinking about, like, in honor of Christmas and good cheer, of actually reviewing the video.
Oh yeah.
Although Dave's already done it, already played it. Is that the one you played, or was it a different one, Dave?
I would have to go back and look. I
don't know if it's the exact one, but because it's just as ridiculous when you replay it. When you play his stuff and then criticize the stupid things he said, or the obvious bias towards his preconceived belief. So I don't know if there's any real point to that. I'm still kind of thinking about it.
He's still active. I just saw a video in my feed. He just had one out like yesterday or something. I think it was.
He's just got such a nasty, attitude. He's just like, he reminds me of that eraser. My grandchildren love to watch, or used to love to watch this show called The Color Crew. And these colors, animated colors would bounce around all happy, and they would color these different pictures. And every once in a while, somebody would color a tomato brown or something. And suddenly it's like, oh, and you'd stop. And then this very grumpy eraser with a mustache would just come bouncing out and erase the brown so that the right color could, the red color could color it. He kind of reminds me of that eraser. It's like, he's just not a happy sounding fella, real angry and uptight. And I don't know. It just seems like it doesn't represent the kind of faith he wants it. He ought to want it to.
Well, if you're going to be there this Saturday, Mike, we can revisit the one I did last week, because he's got video. He's got that video that I sent you, and Thymos said we should wait for you, because that's kind of your specialty.
Are you saying there's another Copeland video or a different video? What?
No, the one we did last week. I don't think we got his name out of it. The Church for Skeptics guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was at second Thanksgiving dinner for that, so I couldn't make it. So
he sits down with a scientist to discuss Darwin.
Oh yeah. Oh, and that scientist turns out to be what the hell was he? He was a phy teacher or something, or a kinesiologist, which studies exercise or something like that.
Yeah, well, it's either that or they're an engineer.
He's a coach. He must be a coach, because that's what a lot of these coach types will major in, is kinesiology, if they're gonna become a high school or junior high.
If you want to do that, then we can do a revisit this week, and plus, because you you were out of town last week anyway. So
Yep, that might be fun.
this guy's at least likable.
Yep. Let me see if this works. The link works. Oh no, the link doesn't work. Redirect notice. Sending you to okay.
And he's got a handful of others on evolution and stuff too. So I've got those downloaded too. So we got plenty.
I got to fix this link because Google kind of sucks in a way. With some of these links, when you, that one should work. Let me. I'm trying to get this PDF from Robert Richards on Haeckel. Anyway, every time these jerks mention, oh, hi, Demeter. Demeter's there. Every time these jerks mention Haeckel's fraud, we need to point them to this video. I think we did it concise enough that I think they can get what we need.
I think Aaron Ra's got one on it too, FYI.
Good. I'm so tired of them lying. It's like, what the hell was it? Those, oh my God. There was some deposit, the chalk deposits in, out in, where the hell was that? Arizona, Alabama. No, not Alabama. It was, maybe it was. I'm not sure.
You mean like
out on the East Coast. No, they were chalk deposits, and they found dinosaurs with humans, and they keep mentioning it. And we did a deep dive about 6 years ago on that with, I did it with Jackson Weed, I think. No, it was with another guy, a geologist. Anyway, it turns out just bullshit that they keep repeating over and over again. It was based on a really shitty illustration in a book that was written in like 1906, where at the time, the very first dinosaur was displayed in some museum, and he took a drawing of that out of the newspaper and used it on the cover of his book, and then talked about these chalk deposits where they had found human remains, and they found all kinds of different fossilized mammoths and things like that, and they were all together supposedly. But the reason they were together, the phosphate beds, the phosphate beds of somewhere. The reason they were together is people had been digging up and churning those phosphate beds for a century to mine the phosphate, right? Because it was a really important fertilizer. And there was just absolutely no basis to this shit. And I haven't heard them repeat that one in a couple of years. So maybe it does do some good to keep telling them to shut the fuck up. I don't know.
Well, just recently, a bunch of them resurfaced with diamonds are a creationist best friend because there's carbon-14 in them. And it's like,
oh yeah, the diamonds.
When were they alive? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every time I see that, my comment is the same. Where do the herds of diamonds roam? Where do the flocks of diamonds fly? Where are the fields of diamonds?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
They're not using the carbon-14 for the dating anyway. They're using the elements that accidentally get stuck into the lattice work of the particular diamond that that will do
and
argon to lead or something like that.
Yeah, ultimately there's always a trace. So
yeah.
Oh yeah, and the zircon. Why is there still helium in the zircon crystal? Well, because when the uranium to lead or whatever is going on inside there, guess what it gives off? Helium. They leave that part out.
Yeah, it just kicks off a couple of neutrons or whatever.
Yeah, the decay that's happening inside. Yeah, when it happens, the helium drops off, and then you have free helium, and then that's why even though it can leak out, it's being replaced, and that's why you find it in zircon crystals. It's but of course they leave it out. You know, they give you half the sentence. The helium leaks out. How's it still in there without saying, there's a source for production inside of it?
And they use diamonds to calibrate those machines for carbon-14 because they presumably have zero So, but if you take what you use to calibrate the machine, you're going to end up with a few readings. It's very easy to get a false reading at that level. And what they don't tell you is that there was one paper. It was, and I could never find out. I could never find it again. But this guy did carbon-14 dating, I think, or he did some radiometric dating on fossils, and he admitted that he lied to the people in the lab about the age of the material. And so they used a dating method or basically procedures that would have found good results for that particular age of material, but not the age that he told. So it was obvious why they got crazy readings, because they were lied to about what they were dealing with and what their job was.
We see in the strategy for misinformation, which is what young Earth creationism is, only one person or maybe one group of persons has to lie. They think they're lying for Jesus, if they even think they're lying at all. After that, people of good intent are reading the articles of people they trust who happen to be lying, but they're not going to lie. They're good Christian people. And so, they're mistaken. The people that read the articles from the liars are mistaken, but they pass on that information anyway because they think it's from a good source. Yeah. So you only need one or two, so let's call them generations of liars to send off bad information. And then it's people just telling their truth or telling the truth from, the best place in their good little hearts. But it's all part of this misinformation machine trying to convince people that dinosaurs and people interacted without, in a vegetarian paradise.
Yeah. Back in the day when I started this YouTube channel, back when I was a young pup, way back, when I had a lot of ambition, I thought they would quote some scientist as saying something, and I would type the exact quote in the Google and go out and like, wait, I can't find it. The only place I can find this quote is on creationist sites. Well, then I would take like one or two words from the beginning or one sentence from the beginning, and then I would find the actual quote, and I would find that they left out like 2 or 3 lines. And everybody that quoted the scientist, they were not going to the source at all. They never read his paper. They were going to the creationist site and picking up the garbage that they said, right? And you could tell because they would misquote them in some manner, either by omission or they would make a little mistake. And so you could trace it back, and you realize that these wonderful YouTubers blathering about science for creationism are the only sources they're using are other creationist sites. And back in the day when I was a young pup, I showed a few examples of that. So
go to the actual frickin' source.
And they're so blatant. Like when I covered AIG talking about the climate and stuff, she was giving citations, and I was like, oh boy, that's what you want, right? Because usually they just say some scientist says or something like that. And right. Yeah, sure enough, you go and you look at that paper, and it didn't say what she said, not in any way, shape, or form. They know, they are so confident that they can even give a citation, and their audience is never going to bother to look it up.
Yeah. Or they're talking about something very specific, and then they will generalize it to mean the entire field. And when you read the context of what they were talking about, you understand it. And then, scientists, when they get a little popular, they shoot their mouths off more than they should. And they end up getting quote mined over
Richard
and over
Dawkins.
Again. Yeah, Richard Dawkins. Yeah. Yep.
I was just saying the other day about Richard Dawkins. It's like, you had a fine career, distinguished career. More people know your name than a lot of other people know anybody else's name. And it's okay to retire, especially after you've had a great career and you're older and you had a mild stroke and everything. Stop. Just stop. go fishing. Yeah. It's okay. No, what does he have to do? He had to keep running his mouth and taint his reputation and everything by saying stupid stuff. It's like,
yep.
And how many times this has happened with older folks, right? They hunt them down, and they stick that microphone in their face and they say something stupid. It's like,
yep.
Look, gentlemen, you have a great career. Put up the shingle, go fishing. And when they show up with the microphone, you just tell them to get lost, okay?
I remember one time there was some interview with Richard Dawkins and I just rue the day I ever heard him say words like this, but he was talking about how grossed out he is by very large-breasted women. And
really?
I did not need to know that. I never wanted to know that. And if I thought it would do any good, I'd have my eardrums removed. But I've already heard it. I can't unhear it.
Yep. Oh, I got a kitty problem. I got a kitty who's a beautiful tuxedo kitty, black and white, that is licking his fur off. And I don't know why he's doing it. I'm giving him steroids. And he hates the steroids. He really gets mad at me when I shove that in his mouth. But I have no idea what's going on here. Thor, I don't know why you're licking your fur off. I think it's a behavioral problem. I'm not sure. But it's horrible.
I had my dog was down last week, cost $800 to go to the vet.
Oh, yeah.
And everything was clear. I mean, the vet even said for a dog his age, the x-rays were some of the best he'd ever seen for a dog that age. We couldn't really find anything. So I said, well, they're talking MRI, surgery, micro, this and that and everything else. Yep. And I'm like, well, maybe he just hurt his back because, when I hurt my back, it's crippling, right?
For a while,
so we went through the meds and everything. They gave him muscle relaxers and pain pills and everything. Not a lot of them. And so he already got dwindled off most of them and everything. And he seems to be getting around. So knock on wood so far, it doesn't seem to be something underlying. It hopefully just tweaked himself. So,
yep.
But he has to go back on Friday to get checked.
My neighbors bought a new dog, some kind of poodle cross with a poodle and a husky. Poodle and that big dog. I forget what it's called, but it's a giant dog and it's got black fur. Anyway, they bought it for like $2,000 and it has a heart problem. It's going to cost them $8,000 to fix it.
Jeez.
Yep, that's not good.
Well, he told me the next, the x-ray was good and everything, he said, but there could be something small that doesn't show on the x-ray. But it didn't find anything in the x-ray or the blood work, no arthritis, nothing like that or whatever. And well, the next step is going up to, first I have to go out of state where they have the doggy MRI machine. And it starts at $2,500, and that doesn't count anything else or surgeries or anything else. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. Give him some pills, and we'll see how he does in a few days. And it'll show if it's chronic or not, right? I'm like, gee whiz, yeah.
He looks like a
$2,500.
The cat looks like a poodle. Okay, he's like licking the fur off his legs. What is he doing? And his belly. And it's got quite a belly there. You got quite a belly, Thor. I don't know what you're doing with that belly.
My dog licked a bald patch on his rear end this summer. I don't know if he, got bit by a bug or something, but he licked it till he had about a silver dollar bear patch right by his rear end there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you love your pet to death and everything and stuff, but gee whiz, the veterinary stuff is, well, it's as much as paying for a regular medical bill on your own, with no insurance or whatever. It's just, tens of thousands of dollars start adding up real quick. And I mean, there's something to be said if the dog is young or something. But you know, an old dog that's getting those problems and everything, is it, you know, to put them through
tough,
everything?
man.
You know,
It's
are they
really
gonna?
tough.
Yeah, are they gonna die a month after the surgery, anyways? Right? After you know, so
Yep.
you
Anyway,
got to weigh that out. Yeah.
I think we'll get out of here. What do you think, guys? Shooting ahead.
Your
Scott,
show.
Might as well. I think the time has
Yeah.
come.
The time has come. The shooting ahead. Okay, guys. What do you think, Dave? You got anything upcoming other than Saturday Night at the Atheist?
Yeah, I got a video that's mostly ready with Pierce Morgan and Jordan Peterson, and they said a couple things that just really bugged me. So I'm like, oh, I'm making a video. So yeah, I've got it all chopped up and wrote up and everything. I just got to put it together, and I got delayed because the dog was sick, and then with the weather setting in, I had to get the greenhouses put up. So the last couple of days we were out there putting up greenhouses, you know, shutting down the pond and everything, because we may be getting some snow later here today. So
yeah, we topped out at 33 degrees at 7 a.m. this morning, and then it started getting colder. But then we're gonna get into the 40s here in a couple of days. So I'm looking forward to
that
unsawing.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday on mine says 50 degrees. So
Yep. Goodbye, Curl
World.
Okay. Yep. Goodbye, Crew World. We're gonna leave. We're out. And then it does a double tap.